I'm here with Dr. Mark Hyman, the author most recently of What the Heck Should I Cook, which this is our cookbook to go with What the Heck Should I Eat, which sort of brings us to our first question, and most people probably don't know, what the heck should we eat?
It's true, we're so confused, and it's no wonder, because one day the news says eggs are bad, then they're good, then they're bad, then meat's bad, then it's good, then it's bad, then it's good. And so people are understandably confused, and that's because nutrition science is hard to do, and because a lot of nutrition science is influenced by the food industry, which makes a lot of the findings suspect, right? If a soda company studies the effect of soda on obesity, guess what? You can drink as much soda as you want, it's all about exercise, right? So I think there's a tremendous amount of good research out there, and I've sifted through all of it to come up with what are the foundational principles of how to eat healthy and how to eat in a way that tastes good, that's delicious, and that people really enjoy. It's not about sacrifice, it's about actually eating food that you love, that loves you back.
Okay, and it can't be difficult because moms are busy. I mean, people don't have the time.
No. So a lot of the recipes are very simple, very easy, quick, and I don't have a lot of time to cook. I'm busy, I run like 5 companies, I have 2 practices, I write books, I travel, I speak, I consult, and I don't have a lot of time to cook. But I know how to make simple, delicious, amazing meals from great ingredients in probably 30 minutes total in a day. 5 minutes for breakfast, 10 minutes for lunch, 15 minutes for dinner.
Right. So we're gonna start, let me talk about first this concept of food as medicine.
Yeah.
Most people don't think of food as medicine, but it is?
Yeah, so most people think of food as calories. You don't want to eat too many calories, you want to burn off more calories than you eat. That's the secret to weight loss, except it doesn't work because food contains far more than calories, it contains information. Basically instructions that tell your biology what to do every minute. So speed up your metabolism, slow it down, increase inflammation, decrease inflammation, balance your hormones or cause hormonal chaos, helps your microbiome, or maybe it makes it worse, your gut flora, or maybe turns on genes that make you sick and fat, or turns on genes that create health. And so by understanding the quality matters more than the quantity, people can start to pick the right foods. And when you choose the right foods, you don't have to worry about quantity. It takes care of itself.
So we really shouldn't count calories?
No, bad idea.
Don't count calories?
No, never. I mean, I never put people on a calorie-restricted diet. I tell people, here are the foods you can choose from that promote good health and that taste delicious. You don't want to eat things that aren't food, right? Most of us eat things that are not food, right? Food-like substances, processed food. 60% of our calories in America come from ultra-processed food. For every 10% of your diet that comes from ultra-processed food, your risk of death goes up 14%. So you do the math, 6 times 14. It's a lot of risk of death by eating the food we do. And literally bad food and not enough good food kills 11 million people a year around the world.
Wow.
If there was a Ebola or Zika or something like that, there'd be a global effort with scientists and philanthropists and governments and everybody to fix the problem. But we have a global epidemic of obesity and diabetes that's caused by eating the wrong foods and not eating the right foods.
Okay. So let's talk about what you eat. All right,
Yes.
Let's start with breakfast.
What I eat?
What do you eat? We're having lunch with Dr. Mark Hyman. What do you eat? Let's start with the morning.
Okay, the morning I have a couple of breakfasts. I like pasture-raised eggs, not pasteurized, but eggs that are from chickens that run around on pastures and eat all kinds of grubs. That makes them have a lot of nutrients. So if you take a farm raised egg versus a factory raised egg, it's going to be dark orange in the yolk. It's going to have full of good fats. It's going to have lots of antioxidants. So I'll have some poached eggs. I'll make an avocado slice, tomato slice, pour some olive oil on there. It's a nice protein and fat breakfast with some veggies. Sometimes I'll have coconut yogurt with some nuts and berries. Sometimes I'll have a shake, or my wife makes what we call alkagizer, which is like a shake from vegetables, which sounds kind of weird, but it's actually quite tasty.
How long does it take you to make a breakfast?
5 minutes.
Okay, so just the eggs and add some...
Poached eggs, slice of tomato, slice of avocado,
just fry
olive
the
oil, salt and
eggs?
pepper. You could lightly, because you don't want to overheat them, because that oxidizes it, and that isn't great.
Okay, so you have one of the dishes that I think is in here. Where did it go? But
The Morning Glory collagen smoothie, that's good.
Well, there's
Green
some,
shashuka, I like
Yes.
that. So that's another one. I have a really nice recipe. Shashuka is basically like a baked egg dish. You can make it in many different ways. Sometimes I'll just get pre-prepared like fresh shashuka sauce, and I'll put it in a cast iron pan, throw a couple of eggs in there, bake it, and you have this delicious breakfast. Or there's a great shashuka recipe, and it's green shashuka with vegetables, and it's very quick.
So, but if you're just being simple, eggs, some avocado, and vegetables, and we're good.
Yeah.
No toast?
I'm not a big toast guy. I think, you know,
Even if it's like whole grain or
yeah.
organic.
So guess what? Whole wheat bread raises your blood sugar more than table sugar. So if you have a sandwich with 2 slices of whole wheat bread, you might as well put 2 tablespoons of table sugar on your sandwich fixings and you'd be better off. Okay. Why? Because the flour, any flour product is ground so fine that it goes zooming right into your bloodstream. That causes insulin to go up. That causes belly fat to grow. It makes you hungry and it slows your metabolism. So you don't want to be eating that.
Okay. What about
you can have
oatmeal, raw oats?
By the way, there are great bread recipes in here.
Okay.
Fantastic recipes that are made from nuts and seeds and other things that are just so delicious. And let's see if I can find the recipe. It's a hemp bread recipe, and there's.
Oh yeah, I saw one in there.
Really?
Now, is there something, if you're pressed for time, you're not a baker, are there any brands that you recommend? Like, what about sprouted bread, like Ezekiel or things like that? Anything out there that people?
I mean, there are some. You can get like paleo breads, which are made from non-grain options,
okay.
And I'll spread a little almond butter or cashew butter on there.
So check out your local health food store, Whole Foods, wherever. A lot of times they have those grain-free breads.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that brings us to that the type of diet you're advocating is vegan?
Yes. So I was basically on a panel with a couple of friends of mine. One was paleo doctor, one was a vegan cardiologist, and they were fighting. I'm like, hey, you guys, if you're a paleo, you're vegan, I must be vegan. And it was a joke. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, basically they agree on absolutely almost everything except where you get your protein, right?
Okay.
From beans and grains or animal foods.
Uh-huh.
They all agree that we should be eating tons of veggies and lots of colorful veggies. They all agree we should be getting rid of all processed food, hormones, pesticides, chemicals, antibiotics, GMO, everything else. They all agree that we should be eating lots of nuts and seeds and good fats like avocados and olive oil and so forth. They both agree that we shouldn't be eating dairy or that much dairy, right? So there's a lot of commonalities, and I sort of came up with this concept called the vegan diet, which was kind of a joke, but it's turned into a thing. And essentially it's got principles that I outline in the book, Food, What the Heck Should I Cook, that guide you on how to choose from the right category. So if you're going to eat animal products, which ones? If you're going to eat fish, which fish? If you're going to eat vegetables, which are the best vegetables? If you're going to eat nuts and seeds, which are the best ones? If you're going to eat grains, what are the best grains and how do you make them? How do you eat beans? What are the best ones? So everything is laid out on there so people aren't confused. And then once you have, it's like having a palette of colors. Then you can paint whatever picture you want.
Okay.
And if you just choose from the right palette, you're not going to end up with a horror nightmare for dinner.
But basically you're saying most of us, whether or not we know if we're allergic to gluten or not, should be either gluten-free or gluten-light.
I think, you know, it's interesting. You know, my wife does not do well if she eats gluten, right? So it's because our modern wheat has been so altered by breeding that it has lots more gluten in it. It also has far more starch in it, and it's much more inflammatory, not to mention the glyphosate, which is Roundup that they spray on the wheat, which you get in your Cheerios. And it also is preserved, it's preserved with this really nasty chemical called calcium propionate, which causes ADD and behavioral issues and can cause autism in animals. And so we found this pasta that was made from heirloom farro that was like 150 years old. I mean, it wasn't made 150 years ago. But,
right, ancient grains.
And we tried it. I was like, because we wanted to try it, you know, have a whole grain pasta. And so we made it, and she was fine because it was an heirloom grain. It was farro, it wasn't our modern wheat. It was an heirloom version, so it didn't trigger the same response.
So when you're going to the store and you see ancient grain waffles or ancient grain cereals.
So you can get einkorn wheat, farro wheat. Some people can tolerate that. Not if they're gluten sensitive, but if they're not really celiac. But even if you're not gluten sensitive, the modern wheat, most people don't eat wheat berries. They eat flour.
Right.
And I don't think we should be consuming flour except as an occasional rare treat.
Okay, so instead, I'm thinking that the average family out there, they're feeding their kids, you know, frozen waffles in the
bread
morning,
and milk,
you know, or toast and something on it. Could they just get the, you know, the millet or the buckwheat?
Yeah, you know, there's a great cereal I used to make. Is basically you take coconut flakes, you can take raisins or currants, you can take various walnuts, pecans, chia seeds, coconut flakes, and you pour like a nut milk, like almond milk, macadamia milk over it and soak it, and it becomes this beautiful cereal that's grain-free, dairy-free, that's just a delicious sweet breakfast for kids. They love it.
Okay.
And it's pretty easy to make. It's not Frosted Flakes. It's not like that. So you got to transition them, but...
And let's to be clear, you grew up in the Midwest and you ate TV dinners and frosted things sometimes.
Did. Well, I didn't eat, well, I might have. My mom was pretty good.
She was a good cook, but like the rest of us,
yeah,
you used to eat
I
that
grew
way.
up in the 70s where, Fleischmann's margarine was big. We drank Tang and had Kraft macaroni and cheese for sure. But
So can we just do Annie's mac and cheese now? That's like what moms are living, and no?
I mean, it's better for sure, but still, the gluten and dairy is a lot for people. And if you have any issue with health, inflammation, digestion, acne, autoimmune disease, I think you need to look at how to do a reset on your body, and sometimes getting rid of that stuff for a short time can be really effective.
Okay, so I just want to go back because you started to say about your smoothie, and then we talked about the eggs. But this wouldn't take too long, and I know we've got a beautiful picture of a big purple smoothie.
Yes.
So a good smoothie in the morning, but it's not just berries and a little bit of milk. There's a lot of stuff in there to hold you.
Yeah, you can put in all kinds of things in your smoothies. You can put in collagen protein. This one has blueberries, zucchini, almond milk, collagen powder, a little coconut water, almond butter, chia seeds, hemp seeds, MCT oil. So it's got lots of, and cinnamon, which is great for balancing your blood sugar. So it's got a lot of omega-3 fats. It's got a lot of protein. It's got a lot of good other fats in it, monounsaturated fats. MCT oil is a great fat to stimulate your metabolism. So it really will help you feel full. It'll activate your brain. It'll stimulate your metabolism instead of making you feel sluggish and tired, which is what most people do when they have sugar for breakfast, which is otherwise known as cereal, muffins, bagels, waffles, pancakes. That's what we eat in America, is sugar for breakfast. It shouldn't be called breakfast. It should be called dessert.
Okay, all right. So I know you also talked about eating broccoli for breakfast, a broccoli bowl. That might be hard to get people on board, but we should rethink what we're doing for breakfast because the breakfast is really the most important meal. It kind of sets us up to burn or store fat all day long.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole field of intermittent fasting, which is saying you can restrict your eating to an 8-hour window that can help. But I think for most people, having protein and fat instead of carbs for breakfast is going to speed up their metabolism, help them feel full, give them energy, and not have them have slump and hunger.
So even just taking some wild blueberries, some peanut butter, and a dairy-free milk, and we can put some of these other things in here, but starting with something like that, a simple smoothie, would be better than eating a cereal or a piece of toast.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cereal is an invention that was just invented around the 1900s by Kellogg, and it's probably one of the worst things that ever happened to America.
I used to work in Battle Creek, Michigan in Cereal City.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
He brought it here as a spa. He thought it was healthy.
If anybody wants to watch the movie, it's called the Road to Wellsville. Have you seen that? A Road to Wellsville about Battle Creek and Kellogg. It's a great movie.
Okay. All right. So just in order of keeping it simple. So now we've got a couple options for breakfast. What does Dr. Hyman eat for lunch?
For lunch, if I'm home, I typically make what I call a fat salad. And what's great about here is we also have a lot of recipe-free cooking. So we can actually teach you how to make simple recipes without actually a recipe. So a simple meal. So the recipe for cooking for lunch, I'll make a fat salad. So I'll take pre-washed arugula that's organic. I'll take some cherry tomatoes, so I have to cut them up. I'll throw some pumpkin seeds. I'll slice an avocado, throw it in there, put a few olives in there. And maybe I'll have a can of wild salmon or a can of sardines to go with it. So I have protein and fat, and I put olive oil and vinegar and salt and pepper. It takes me literally 10 minutes to put the whole thing together or less. And it's just a delicious filling salad. You can chop up some other things in it, such as fennel, or you can put radishes in there.
Whatever you like, but the important thing is we need the healthy fat to feel full.
Yeah, the fat and the protein. So I get nuts in there, I get olives in there with the good fats, the avocados, which is also protein and fat, and then olive oil. So you feel full, you're satisfied, you're not hungry with a little bit of like iceberg lettuce with a little vinegar on it. That's not going to work.
No. So if people are having a salad, just some simple things you would tell them: add some nuts, add some protein, and even that would be an improvement.
And good fats. So avocados, olives.
Olive oil?
Olive oil.
Okay.
Pumpkin seeds are great. Pine nuts are great.
So adding a few of those. I know the book has some things. Nuts are actually one of your favorite snacks, and there's some recipes in here for trail mix. But even if you're living like most people, out of your car, running to get the kids, whatever, and you have to stop and get something, you would tell them, get some nuts for a snack?
For sure. Like if I'm in an airport or stuck somewhere, I'll get almonds or cashews. They may not always be the best, but It's better than eating other junk. And you know what? I also recommend people not be in a food emergency, which takes a little planning, which means you bring food with you, or you have packaged food that actually is just whole food. Like I have nut butter packets that I throw in my bag. So I'm never stuck. If I'm on an airplane or an airport, I don't have to, eat at McDonald's if there's nothing else around.
Right. Jerky. You like beef jerky?
Jerky's great. I just love
But
that.
not the kind that we get at the gas station.
No, not the kind with monosodium glutamate in it, with sugar and nitrates. There's grass-fed jerkies, there's turkey, I get elk jerky, venison jerky, bison jerky, and they're yummy.
And I know you have a recipe to make that, but again, people can buy nowadays some pretty
Yes,
high quality
absolutely.
jerkies, and that would be something to keep in your bag,
Absolutely.
or maybe your kids
Yeah.
before or after their sports practices.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've gotten snacks. Now we're getting to dinner. This
Yeah.
is the one question of what's for dinner that a lot of moms just hate to even think about
Yeah.
because it's so busy nowadays.
Yeah. It's not that hard. I mean, typically, there's a lot of great recipes in here, and some of them take a little more time, some of them less time. But I'll make, for example, a steak salad, which is super easy. You just put a piece of grass-fed skirt steak or something on the grill, slice it up thin, throw it on a big salad with all those different kinds of veggies, olive oil and vinegar. It's just yummy, delicious, and there's a great recipe for that in here. I'll make, sometimes a salmon I made the other night, which was a mustard glazed salmon. You just take a little piece of salmon, throw some things on it with like ground almonds and mustard and some butter, and you put it in the bacon for 20 minutes. It's super easy. Usually stir fry some veggies. There's a great recipe in here. Persian cucumber side salad is amazing.
So a lot of it isn't going to take us a lot of time,
No.
and it can be pretty simple, but you want to be
Yeah.
thinking, I guess in the paleo terms, what would have our ancestors eaten? Just
Yeah.
meats and vegetables.
Yeah, I mean, there's some grains in here. Sometimes we'll use millet, sometimes we'll use other things. So it's not grain free, but I tend to use non-gluten grains. So I'll use black rice, I'll use quinoa and other things like that.
So when my husband and I are watching our weight, we'll just do the meat and vegetables, but then I always feel like my kids, they want the pasta, they want rice. I'm always feeling I should make carbs for the kids.
Well, most people need to realize there are essential fats, there are essential proteins, but there's no such thing as essential carbohydrate. It's not necessary for us to eat.
We don't
at
need
all.
a carb to live at all.
Except what I would say is carbohydrates are also the most important thing we need for health and longevity. So what do I mean by that? Vegetables.
You get your
Vegetables are all
vegetables from
carbohydrates.
carbohydrates.
And I don't mean potatoes, which are the #1 vegetable to eat in America. I don't mean tomatoes in the form of ketchup or pizza sauce, which is the #2 vegetable. And I don't mean iceberg lettuce, which is the #3 vegetable.
Okay.
I mean like colorful, dark, rich, non-starchy vegetables.
Okay. So even for the kids, if you're thinking, well, we're watching our weight, but I'm going to make the kids some pasta to go with this, we really don't need to be
I mean,
thinking that way.
you can make them some whole grains if you want. That's fine.
Yeah.
You can give them some sweet potatoes if they want some carbs. That's fine. Winter squash. That's all good.
Yeah. And that's part of it is we want to introduce people when they're young to
Yeah.
real food.
This is what makes me crazy in America. They have kids menus and kids food. I mean, what do you think kids eat in Japan? Lunchables? They eat raw fish and seaweed. So little kids will eat whatever their parents eat.
Yeah, I know.
And I think it's been a huge,
I'm going to play this section for my children.
there's a huge, but what the problem is, it's a huge con job. So they get them addicted early, and once they're hooked, you ever watch a kid? There's videos of kids sometimes having their first bite of sugar. It looks like they're on crack.
It really
Right?
does. When they, if you give them their first birthday cake, and some people have never given their child cake before, it is, yes, it's fun to watch them.
And then they get hooked. And so try to take your crack away from a crack addict. It's not going to be that easy.
So are you saying sugar, we should think of it like a drug?
Absolutely. I think sugar, we have recipes in here that include maple syrup and honey and coconut sugar that are whole food sugars that are in small amounts in desserts. That's fine if they're in an overall package of fiber and protein and good fats. But most of us consume enormous amounts of sugar. The average American consumes a gallon of soda a week, okay? And some a lot more. And then we consume about 152 pounds of sugar for every man, woman, and child in America. And that's a lot of sugar. That's half a pound a day almost, right? So we are consuming it hidden in everything. It's in salad dressing. It's in pizza sauce. I mean, there's more sugar in a serving of pizza sauce or Prego tomato sauce than there is in 2 Oreo cookies.
Really?
Yes.
So we should be making our own tomato sauce or buying ones that don't have sugar, added
Yes.
sugar. Okay.
Yes.
Seltzer water. A lot of people are switching off soda and drinking seltzer water. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. And there's all kinds of flavored teas and waters that are without sugar. I just found a new one the other day. It was so good. And I mean, it's like a sparkly drink with like flavor with ginger and tea, and it's like yummy.
So go for that, and that's fine. The
Yeah.
teas and the salt, drink to your heart's content. Okay. So we talked about dinner. You had some fast things there as well. Oh, another trend. People are starting to incorporate a lot of apple cider vinegar, which I know is one of your pantry staples. But is it true that it really melts off belly fat the way the internet tells
I don't
us?
think so.
No?
Nothing melts off belly fat except eating real food and getting rid of starch and sugar. Starch and sugar are the things that are driving the obesity epidemic. I mean, when I graduated from medical school, there wasn't a single state that had an obesity rate over 20%. Now, many states have rates over 40, and many are encroaching on that very fast. There isn't a single state that has an obesity rate under 30 now. And that's only, since I graduated from medical school. And it's getting worse and worse, and 75% of Americans are overweight now or obese. That's 3/4 of Americans. This is not normal for human beings, and it's because of our ultra-processed industrial diet that's full of starch and sugar. And that's really why I want to get people back in the kitchen. And the reason I wrote this cookbook, Food What the Heck Should I Cook, is because people are afraid of the kitchen. We've been convinced that you should leave the cooking to us. You deserve a break today, right?
Yes.
Right?
Or you just
We've
don't
been
feel as
brainwashed-
confident
yeah.
maybe your grandmother had more time, or...
It's not even that. We have raised 2 generations of Americans who don't know how to cook. And the food industry deliberately has hijacked the American kitchen. Remember Betty Crocker?
Right, I read in your book she's
Yeah.
not real.
She's not a real person. She was invented because there was a home ec teacher named Betty who wanted to get everybody cooking in the kitchen, and the food industry was not happy with that, and so they invented Betty Crocker, and they started putting recipes. My mother has this cookbook with all these processed ingredients. So you'd have your casserole with a can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup,
Yeah.
or you'd have your Velveeta cheese and Ritz crackers sprinkled on your broccoli casserole, or right. So they were slowly encroaching, and then we got the TV dinners, and then we got packaged and processed food just accelerated in the 70s and 80s, and now most people don't know how to cook.
Is it really important to be all organic?
It's important first to eat real food. So organic is more expensive, it's harder to find and harder to get. There is a great guide called the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 from the Environmental Working Group, where I'm on the board. And essentially it lists, if you're gonna eat strawberries, they should be organic. But if you wanna eat avocados or bananas or cabbage, it doesn't matter, right? So you can cut your budget by picking the ones that are most contaminated to be organic, or avoiding them, and then choosing the ones that are non-organic that aren't really contaminated. So it's important if you can, but the hierarchy is eat real food, and then you can, try to eat organic.
Better to eat a conventional strawberry than eat a packaged something.
Then eat gummy bears, yeah.
Okay. Let me just ask you also about when you're talking about dieting. It's a psychological thing. This actually, we were talking to so many people in our newsroom who this is a time of year people are getting back on plans or trying to maybe lose a little weight before the holidays. What about the whole
Kind of
mental?
pre-diet?
Yeah. What about the whole mental aspect that you can give someone any healthy diet, but if they don't have the fortitude to do it, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I think most of us, and your question sort of reflects this prevailing view that weight loss is about willpower. That if you didn't have the fortitude, you're going to not be able to stick with it. That it's your fault you're overweight. That the reason you can't lose weight is because you eat too much and you don't exercise enough. That is propaganda perpetuated by the food industry because it takes them off the hook. If there's no difference between a broccoli calorie and a soda calorie, as long as you don't go over on the limit, then they can sell all the crap they want, right? But is really 8.5 cups of broccoli the same as 250 calories a can of soda? No, right? It's very different how it affects your body. So if you are eating a diet that's high in starch and sugar, your hormones are going to be out of control, your brain chemistry is going to be out of control, your metabolism is going to be out of control, and you're going to be hungry all the time, and you're going to want to eat and crave more carbs and starch, which is good for the food industry, bad for you. Okay. So you want to make sure you eat in a way that's not going to make you crazy eating all the time. And when you do that, when you have fat and protein for breakfast, you start the day right, and you have low starch and sugar throughout your day, you're not going to end up in these crazy cycles of blood sugar and cravings.
But if you have your house filled with conventional products, it's going to take a little bit to bridge that. So
no, you just get a big black garbage bag, and you just throw everything in there that shouldn't be in there, and you start fresh. And you bring it to the food pantry and give it to some homeless people, although, probably you shouldn't feed it to them either.
Okay. But so the willpower, when women will say, well, I'm just not ready yet, or I have to get my mind psyched up. When you start eating this way, will it get easier? Can you give people an
100%.
idea, like, hey,
Okay.
the first week you might feel
So
this,
I had a person who came to see me who was like, listen, I've been addicted to sugar my whole life. There's no way I'm going to be able to stop. I said, okay, let's just do this for 3 days. So by day 2, she said all her cravings were gone. She didn't want sugar. It was completely fixed because you fix your brain chemistry. And in the book, Food, What the Heck Should I Eat, I have a program that goes along with this, which is essentially a reset to sugar detox, basically get you off the sugar. And that really helps your brain start to work properly, so you want the right things.
All right.
Because if you're fighting with your willpower, you're not going to do it. If I said, listen, I'm going to give you $10 million if you can hold your breath for 10 minutes underwater. You want the 10 million, but there's no way you can do it because you have an overwhelming urge to breathe. The same part of your brain controls your feeding behavior. And if you're feeding it sugar and starch, you're going to be activating that.
it wants more.
Wants more.
Okay, so if we're going to start doing this, give yourself those 3 days and know after that, 3 days, 5 days, depending on who you are, you're going to feel better and it's going to get
100%,
easier. Okay, so
100%.
just,
I
I think that's easier for people.
we had a
Like, I just
patient-
have to do this really well for 3 days and
we
it's
had
going to
a
get
patient,
better.
at the Ultra Wellness, we had a patient who literally was on huge amounts of insulin. Within 3 days, she was off her insulin.
Wow.
You get all the crap out, body normalizes. The body wants to be healthy.
Okay, so let me ask you before we get into coming here, because that's a good point. There's a lot of diets out there, and I just want to this is sort of like rapid fire. Give me a little quick thought on each one of the diets that people
Sure.
are trying out there. Keto.
I think keto is good for some people, like diabetics, type 2 diabetics, for people who want rapid weight loss, people who have cognitive brain issues. It can be really good. I don't think it's necessary for everybody because it's extreme, and I think we historically cycled in and out.
Okay. Atkins.
I'm not a big fan of Atkins. Atkins is a giant piece of steak and, don't eat too many vegetables. I'm sort of the opposite, which is lots of good fats, moderate to small amounts of protein, and lots and lots of plant foods and veggies.
Okay. Vegan.
Vegan, it can be okay for some people, but it's a very nutritionally depleted diet. And unless you compensate by getting omega-3 fats and getting vitamin D and getting iron and getting B12 and getting the right quality protein, which is tough, and if you're not going to be eating all these fake burgers and fake soy hot dogs, and it's a tough thing. And I just say, I respect it as a moral choice. I respect it as an environmental choice, although the truth is that eating regeneratively raised beef might be better than being a vegan for the planet, and that's a longer story.
That's a whole nother thing. Okay.
But I think the real issue is that unless you are doing it right, it can be really challenging for people.
You can be really deficient.
Yes.
Okay. The Mediterranean diet.
I think it's a generally healthy, balanced diet, but the question is, what Mediterranean? Is it Italian? Is it Spanish? Is it Greek? Is it Turkish? Is it Armenian? What is it? And I think people don't, there's not a consensus of what actually it is, but essentially it's lots of fresh vegetables and fruit, lots of good fats, seafood, whole grains, nuts and seeds, which is basically what we're saying people should eat.
Right. Because basically you're saying, go ahead and do the vegan, but add some protein with your paleo.
Yeah, I think, you can, I've seen people who are healthy vegans, but there's never been a historically vegan society in the history of humanity before the last 100 plus years. I mean, the word vegan just was developed in the 1940s.
Okay.
So there's been nobody was a voluntary vegan. Yes, most of our diet was plants historically, for sure.
And
But
it should be today, according
yes,
to you.
absolutely.
But we need a little, okay.
We used to eat 800 species of plants as hunter-gatherers. We were mostly gatherers and a little bit of hunter.
Right, which gathering,
ga-
they say whole foods can be fast foods. If you just gather them and eat them, even if you don't make them the way that you've made them so beautiful in the book, they're food.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, so that's what your thought on those things are. Let me ask you a little bit before we move to the supplement thing. But if you're coming here to the Ultra Wellness Center, which people from Connecticut can, it's
Yes,
not
they
that far.
can, no.
This is
We
actually,
have people coming from all over the world.
and this is where you started at Canyon
is.
Ranch way back when, before everyone knew your name.
Yeah.
You started right here?
Yes.
In Lenox, Mass.
Yes.
So how would coming here to get a physical from you or one of your other doctors be different?
Well, here at the Ultra Wellness Center, we deal with the root causes of chronic illness, whether you have autoimmune disease, whether you have diabetes, whether you have cognitive issues, mood disorders, whether you have allergies, whether you have any kind of chronic illness, we deal with the root cause. And one of the primary things we do is use food as medicine, because food is better than any drug on the planet. It works faster, better, and cheaper. like I said, I've had people reverse their heart failure, reverse diabetes, reverse autoimmune disease using the power of food as medicine. And that is really what we center here. But we also do advanced diagnostic testing to look at causes of what's going on. And rather than, I just saw a patient this morning who had an autoimmune disease, his doctor gave him a powerful drug to shut off his immune system and didn't ask him what he's eating or how his gut was. And we know that 60% of the immune system is in the gut. So we focus on healing the gut. We focus on providing the foods that are anti-inflammatory, that help remove the foods that are inflammatory. And we help people repair what often are very difficult to treat diseases using the process of functional medicine, which is really the medicine of why, not what disease do you have, not just suppressing symptoms, but helping create health.
Does that mean that we shouldn't use prescriptions?
Absolutely, we use prescriptions. I use them all the time, but I only use them if I need them, and I don't really need them, and most of the time I get people off the medications.
Okay, so with food, we can get off of some of those harsher medications if we do it right.
Yes.
Let me just put you on the spot about some common problems that people eat, and you tell me maybe some foods we could add that might help. I know it's not always that simple, but let's say a lot of people are dealing with stress and anxiety and overwhelm. What can we eat to feel better in that department?
That's a great question. So you can be stressed from some external force, like some boss yelling at you, or having kids with 15 soccer games in a week. But often what you eat creates biological stress.
Okay.
So we know when you eat sugar and starch, flour, so forth, it actually raises cortisol. It raises adrenaline. So your body literally can become physiologically stressed from what you're eating. So cutting out the starch and sugar, eating whole foods, eating more fats and protein, which balance your neurotransmitters, that is a huge way to cut stress.
Okay. And let's say blood pressure problems.
Well, a lot of blood pressure problems are caused by belly fat and inflammation, which is caused by starch and sugar. So I hate to sound like a broken record, but the reason we're seeing this epidemic of high blood pressure and heart disease and diabetes is because of the amount of starch and sugar we're consuming.
And if there's something you're going to add in there for food as medicine, I've heard beets are sort of.
Yes, no, of course. When you start to include good fats like omega-3 fats, that lowers your blood pressure. When you start to eat all the polyphenol, the colorful compounds in plant foods, you get reductions in inflammation, oxidative stress that helps your blood pressure come down. So yeah, all the dark colored red and blue and green things are all good for you.
Okay. So we did blood pressure, we did stress. Okay, let's just say fatigue, low energy. People are always looking for what can I have that's going to give me some energy, and maybe you don't want them reaching for the vending machine or another cup of coffee.
Well, they basically could get the book, Food What the Heck Should I Cook, because if you eat this way, your energy will go through the roof. Because most of the food we're eating robs our energy. This food helps you gain energy by providing all the raw materials for your brain to work, for your metabolism to work, and for you to feel better.
So you won't crash as much if you
No,
start
I mean, you're
eating
going like this if you're eating sugar. I mean, look, now we have these continuous glucose monitors that people can use, and they've done experiments where they take people and put them on this way of eating, and their blood sugar stays like this. And when they have the pancakes and breakfast or the muffins or the bagels, it's like this all day, and your energy up and down, and you're basically grabbing sugar and caffeine to keep you going instead of actually letting your body naturally keep its energy up.
Okay, so back to coming here. If people do want to come here, you just make an appointment?
Yeah, they can go to ultrawanacenter.com and they can read about our practice, and they can call us or send us a message on the website and make an appointment.
And the blood test you would get here would be very different than what you would go to your regular doctor?
I mean, functional medicine is a very different way of thinking. It's about the body as a system. So we look at your gut, we look at food sensitivities, we look at heavy metal toxins, we might look at latent infections, we'll look at your nutritional status, your hormone status, all sorts of things that most conventional doctors just don't look at. When they do your test, they say, oh, everything's fine. What they're saying is they've looked at 30 different things and on a blood test, and there's literally millions of things that are going on in your body all the time. And those things that they look for are really only abnormal when you're very sick, or when you're in the hospital, or when there's something really wrong, then they're abnormal. So when you go to the doctor, they do your lab test, they say, well, everything's fine, you must be fine, it's all in your head, take an antidepressant. That means one of two things: either you're crazy or the doctor's missing something, and it's usually the doctor's missing something. And at the Ultra Wellness Center, we find those things that they're missing.
So if you can't come here for some reason, or maybe this isn't going to be in your budget or whatever, what would you recommend them tell their own doctor? Like, what are some of the blood tests you really want to make sure your doctor's running, asking for? I don't know if it's vitamin D or looking for a certain test that maybe you need to say, hey, will you run that for me?
Well, some of the tests that we do aren't really done by conventional doctors, but yes, checking your vitamin D level, checking your Yeah, I mean, it's tough because they don't.
They don't do a lot, okay. But if there's a few that you would say, if
Yeah.
you're going to a conventional doctor, should they always be checking our vitamin D?
I think vitamin D is important because many people are low and it can cause fatigue and muscle aches and immune issues and so forth, frequent infections, so it's an important one to check.
Okay. And if you come here, there's, you can
We have
spend the day, or how long will it take to
we
get,
have
to get the
ama-
workup?
No, we have an amazing team. We have 4 physicians, we have 2 physicians assistants, we have like 4 nutritionists and multiple nurses, a great team. And usually you spend the whole day. We meet with the provider, the practitioner, the doctor, and then you meet with the nutritionist and the nurse, and then you sort of get your whole plan developed and your lab testing done, and then you go on your way with a clear plan. And then we have frequent follow-up, which we do in person or by phone, and we can help people really guide them on a path to better health.
Okay, so even if you can't come back, you come get your big workup,
Yep.
and maybe you're going to get some answers about why you're feeling this way, or you're struggling with an autoimmune
Exactly.
disease, and people have really healed from some tough stuff by coming
Oh,
here.
incredible. I mean, we treat people with memory loss, with autoimmune diseases, with diabetes, with mood disorders, with digestive issues, all these problems that they think they have to live with and manage. You don't have to manage them. Even
What
heart-
about kids with, there's such a big issue for parents, there's so many kids now with
The ADD.
ADHD, yeah.
I mean, the data is really clear. When kids have poor nutrition, their brains aren't working. When kids are on junk food and processed food, when they have nutrient deficiencies, their brains just don't work. And I just remember a kid who was 12 years old, came to see me, severe ADD since kindergarten. He had all these issues, was on Ritalin, and he had behavioral issues, disruptive, kicked out of class, not functioning in school, but he also had asthma and irritable bowel and anxiety and headaches and muscle cramps and insomnia and all these other issues that the psychiatrist ignored and gave him Ritalin. We looked at what was really going on with him, and he had so many nutritional deficiencies because all he ate was processed foods. We had zinc deficiency, magnesium deficiency, B6 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, omega-3 deficiency. Those are all critical nutrients for the brain. So we put him on a whole foods diet, we got him off processed food, he was allergic to gluten, and within 2 months, completely turned around. His handwriting, which looked like illegible scrawl, went from illegible to perfect penmanship, and it was pretty striking. And that is just through the power of fixing these small imbalances that can be profoundly impacting the brain.
Okay. Anything else that you want to say before we move on? If you're joining us on the podcast, we are going to do another segment where you're going to show us all your must-have supplements. But
Yes.
anything in closing?
Well, yeah, I would think for this little boy, hopefully we can show the picture of his handwriting before and after, because
I'd love to get that picture.
1,000
Yeah.
words. And
Yeah, if you
I
can
think I'd
show
love to
us
share
that.
that because I think
And do you see children here? Can children
we
come?
see children, we see autistic kids, we see kids with ADD, with behavior issues, autoimmune diseases.
I know that this is, sometimes people think that they can't afford it. Can they, can some of this be covered by insurance? If you take it back, will your insurance
Yes, some
cover
of the
some
labs and things can be covered by insurance. Yes, medications are often covered by insurance. We do our best to help people. I think often things can be done simply by just starting with food first in your family.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, good place to start. All right, thank you so much. Thank you.
welcome.